Welcome to our series, Parenting Today, Real Life, Real People, Real Faith. We're talking about our life, your life, how to parent with faith in the context of our personal strengths and our personal weaknesses. I'm Mikey Hill. I'm the mother of 9 children. We've been married for 28 years. My co-host here is Mary Hassan. She's the mother of 7 and about to approach her 25th anniversary. Our special guest today is Dr. Ray Guarendi. Ray is the father of 10, always trying to up us.
5 boys.
That's why you had 10.
5 estrogen Americans.
He is also a clinical psychologist, a public speaker, a radio talk host, and just an all-around great dad.
Just a sweet guy,
What a
full
guy.
of humility and meekness. You know,
Yeah.
you forgot that part.
Yeah, well, I'm still stuck on winning the division thing. I'm not really sure who won here. Who's the champ? Okay. Ray, we've been talking about conquering the culture, claiming our authority. How can we do this practically? Help us understand, what if I'm not you? What if I'm not a type A, choleric, driven parent? I don't really like risk. I don't like confrontation. I don't like conquering the culture. I don't like talking back.
Can't we all just get along?
You said kumbaya. That's really where my comfort level is. How can I claim my authority as a parent today, 2008?
You want the bad news first?
Give
It's
it to
easier.
us.
Some of the sweetest, kindest, most moral, pious human beings I've known are not good parents. Not that they don't have lots of love.
And not that they don't want to be.
That's right. They got the best of intentions. They don't have that strength of spine that you have to have some of to deal with a child. My wife put it this way. She said, to be a good parent, I think you have to have a bit of a mean streak in you. And what she meant was not to be nasty, but you have to have a hardness of resolve,
Right.
which would be looked at like, well, gosh, you're uncompromising. And the sweetest folks, and I get a lot of them in my office, will come in. You're absolutely right, Mikey. You put your finger right on it. They personally struggle with asserting their will. One of the things I will do is I will tell them, your authority does not reside in your personality. It resides in your ability to control that environment. It doesn't take a mean, strong, type A personality parent to say,
No.
please go to your room. Yeah, you said please. You didn't even raise your voice. You were kind about it. Matter of fact, your softness was a good thing. But the strength comes from the fact that if you don't go to your room, I am prepared to do something about it. That isn't strength of personality, that's strength of will. There's a little
And
difference.
strength of conviction.
Yeah, there's a little difference there. You can be, look at our Blessed Mother.
Right.
She probably wasn't,
She was
I have
a
no way of
choleric,
knowing.
though.
Yeah, she was probably just this beautifully holy woman, but look at her strength. Her incredible strength to sit at the foot of a cross and watch her son be tortured. Could you do it? I don't know if I could do it.
No.
And she was probably, what, mid-40s, something like that. So you can have strength of resolution without necessarily being intense about it.
No, you can have a sensitive heart, but something I hear articulated by moms often is, well, I don't know what to do. You spoke about consequences. You have to have clear in your mind what you're going to do. You know, what's the fallout if a child says, no, I'm not going to my
Let me
room?
make it simple. I do this with my clients all the time. You grew up during the time of sticker systems, charts. Put a sticker system up there. I'm going to give you a sticker for thinking about making your bed. I'm going to give you a sticker for walking up the steps. I'm going to give you a sticker for stopping at the doorway and thinking about making your bed. I'm going to give
that
you a sticker
positive
for walking toward the bed. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to give you a sticker for not tripping over it while you try to make the bed. Most people stop doing that after about a week. Refrigerators are monuments to dead sticker systems. They go up there to die.
Mine was for a while.
Yes.
It didn't take me long to figure out that didn't work.
I go to people's houses and I look at this yellowish sort of thing and I'll say, oh, it looks like a sticker system from 1941 you have up there. The reason they don't is because it's too complex. We're not bookkeepers. So when you say, Mary, what do I do Give me a consequence. My main principle is simplicity. Your kid's 4, 5, 6, 7. Use the corner. You can use the corner for about 90% of daily misbehavior. Use the corner.
Yeah.
You don't have to think. Use the corner. Go to the corner, please.
Right.
Now, obviously, if you want to go in this direction, ladies, the number one thing a parent is going to say is, well, how do you keep him there? How do you get him to go? He won't stay. He throws a fit. He starts to argue. He comes out 26 times. Well, we can talk about that down the road, or we can talk about it now. I'll leave it up to you, ladies.
Well, no, answer that question.
All right.
Answer that question. I know, what I would do, but
Well, what you would do would probably be against the law. So I tell parents, if a kid misbehaves, that's to be expected. That's routine. I understand it. The average kid misbehaves a dozen or more times a day. They greatly ratchet up the stakes
the challenge.
when they defy. When they say, I won't take your consequence. I'm not going to the corner. I'm not writing your essay. I will not go to my room. You cannot have my iPod. I'm not giving you $5. I'm not doing my extra work that you've made me do. I'm not doing it.
Help our audience understand this is a 10-year-old. This is
Any
a
age.
It could be.
5-year-old
hopefully a
could be
5-year-old doesn't have an
14-year-old.
iPod. So
Right, it
you're
could be a
saying you're going to
14-year-old.
apply this at any age,
Across the
whether
board.
it's the Dr.
Across
Seuss
the
book or
board.
the iPod.
Across the board.
Good.
The instant the child refuses, the instant the child defies, the instant the child makes it very clear she's not going to do it, you shut them down.
And that means
You eliminate all perks, all privileges except love, some kinds of food, maybe the bathroom.
okay, they're already in the corner and they're
Well,
refusing.
they're not staying. They're coming out. They're not going to go to the corner. This 5-year-old is going to look at you like, who are you talking to? You don't want any of this. They're not going to go to the corner. So that's when the mother says, okay, I told him to go to the corner. Big deal.
And she's going to say to him, role play this
Blacked
with
out.
us.
Honey, you're blacked out. You have nothing. I don't want to Barney, Mom. I'm going to want to Barney. No, you're watching nothing. I didn't get my corner yet. When I get my corner, you can watch. Chocolate Sunday with for nuts, Mom. I'm having a chocolate Sunday with for nuts. That's a good idea, honey. We're going to drive through and get a chocolate Sunday with for nuts. Sarah and I, you're going to watch.
Right.
I didn't get my corner first. Favorite shirt gone. Favorite cup gone. Favorite toys gone. Favorite books gone. All stuffed animals gone. Outside gone. Friends gone. If you go to grandma's house, no dessert. If you go out to eat, give him a banana and sandwich before you go. Until you get that cooperation, that's it.
Well, it comes back, Ray, to the fundamental conviction a parent has to have that they're in charge and they need to do what's right for this kid. And this kid needs to know they are in charge. And so what you're describing lays down the law. It makes it clear that, you know what, you have to do what I say. And there are big consequences
Most
if
parents'
you don't.
motives for that is kind of like imperfect contrition. You know how we say, well, you got to be sorry for your sins, and I guess for many of us, the first motivation is I'm afraid of hell. But that's not the best motivation.
But it's a starting
It's a
point.
starting
It's a
point.
starting point.
For many parents, they'll look at that and say, well, I guess I can do that. I'm just getting compliance is all I'm getting. I'm not teaching anything. But yes, you are. Yes, you are. What you're teaching more than anything else is that woman has authority.
Is your authority. Yeah.
That woman has authority. And the other thing you're doing, you are eliminating conflict. The day-to-day conflict in most homes comes from this, the discipline bash. I can't simply say, honey, go sit on the couch. I'll tell you when you can get up. I can't simply do that because it will get ugly. He'll start negotiating with me. He'll drag his feet. He'll get off the couch. He'll yell and scream. He'll throw something. Now, I don't even want to tell him to go sit on the couch because I don't want to go through this for the next 47 minutes. You eliminate that. As soon as you say you don't sit on the couch, you're blacked out.
So we want to motivate all the three of us and our listening audience to the practical fruit of claiming authority. No more the practical fruit is no more adversarial.
You're not grinding.
Yeah,
You're moving
exactly.
it away like this.
Exactly. So at the very least, there's a social benefit.
Yes. Peace.
And there's also the social benefit is now we can take this child out in the public Because if all of a sudden we've got everything rehearsed and he acts up in front of Aunt Mary or at Denny's, now we know he will respond to the authority, whether it's mom or dad,
Yes.
or even the displaced authority of the older brother who's babysitting. They understand this concept of authority that will at least, if not bring moral, ascendancy, it at least brings a civil understanding of what's acceptable behavior.
What happens though, Ray, in a situation where, let's say you've got dad who's said, go to the corner, and then you have mom disagreeing and saying, oh, honey, don't, he shouldn't be in the corner.
Right. He
Right.
didn't
What
really
happens?
mean it.
Only 31. He's going to get a job eventually.
Well, or there's a bailout sort of syndrome maybe
Yes.
going on with one parent. How do you deal with that when there's a conflict between the two parents about how to claim that
It
authority?
depends the degree, and might I even say the pathology of the conflict. It's one thing for two parents not to have the same style. That's routine.
Right.
And that's almost expected.
That's almost to
in
be
marriage.
expected. The kid learns which parent has the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit and which parent has the 50. That's understandable. Most kids will tell you, oh yeah, I could get away without my dad. I wouldn't try it with my mom, or vice versa. That's not bad. That doesn't get pathological. When you start drifting into the area of, I'm going to undercut your parenting because I don't agree with the way you're doing it. I don't like the way you're doing it. I think you're too hard. I think you're too strict. I don't like your standards. I don't like all of this. Now you got a marital issue. It's not necessarily a parenting one. It's a marital one. Let me go from the perspective of moms. The mom says, well, I know what I'd like to do with this 14-year-old, but I got to contend with dad.
He's saying this to the child.
To herself or to her
okay.
friend. I got to contend with dad. He's going to let him watch that. Dad is going to, if I say I want an essay, dad's going to take him out somewhere and they'll be out being buddy, buddy, buddy. I'll never get my essay. I always reinforce to moms, you have more authority by virtue of your running things, by virtue of your leverage.
Yeah.
If, for example, you want an essay and you're not getting it, and dad is kind of implying you don't need to write it either, son. Okay, well then dad will take him to practice because you're not. Dad will wash his clothes because you're not. Dad
So
will...
you put dad on shutdown.
Well, absolutely. Yes. The mom
Could you
does...
find the scripture that says I'm in authority over my
It's
husband?
First
This
Book
could
of
be really
Hesitations.
handy
First Book of
tonight.
Hesitations.
Hesitations.
The mom, if you look at most surveys, even working outside the home moms do 60 to 80% of the domestic
Right.
work.
Right.
Well, you now have 60 to 80% of the leverage.
Leverage.
That's exactly
That's,
right.
that's a good way to think of it.
Exactly. And if dad says, oh, I'll take him to practice then. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And tomorrow too, and the next day too, until I get that essay. Now, most moms are not going to do that. They're not. They're like you say, Mikey, it goes back to that thing with the strength of the resolve, the personality. But it does work. If you have a situation so pathological that the dad or the mom is not going to let you discipline, because in their view, and I've had many of these in therapy, where the dad will say to the mom, you're gonna turn our kids away from us. You're going to make our kids hate our guts. I grew up with dictatorial parents, and I'm not going to do that with my children. This heavy overcompensating on the part of one of the parents. And the parent who wants to discipline is basically like this. They're
Hands
handcuffed.
tied.
They're handcuffed.
But you're using the word pathological, and let's go there. There's a lot of that now. We've got a lot of dysfunctional families because they're trying to parent, but does that dad or that mom have to go back and say, why does this make me angry? What does he or she have to do to kind of unravel this pathology? Because that's a big word, and I think it's a real word today.
Part of it is they take it personally. If I'm a woman and I have a husband who is not going to back me up, or I have a husband who is radically different in his approach, I look at it like he's assaulting me. He doesn't respect who I am. He doesn't respect my dignity as a mother. He's hanging me out to dry in front of the kids. He's forming alliances with the kids against me. So there's that enormous personal reaction on the part of the parent, and that's where the anger comes from.
Right.
You know, that
Right.
that visceral kind of,
And even if they don't look like that, we've got this
Oh, yeah,
internal.
it's gurgling.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just gurgling in there. And what I'll do with the parents a lot of times, the one that's on that low side of it, I'll say, well, first of all, you got to understand that parent has some kinds of percolating issues going on in there. Whether he's afraid the kids won't like him, whether he, when he was a child, had parents that were just my way or the highway, punk,
Right.
and he's extremely swung the other way.
Right.
He's out of balance. Whether that parent kind of looks at you and says, you know, our marriage isn't the greatest, so if I'm going to get any joy out of this whole thing, I might as well at least have the kids like me, all right? Because I know what you're like to live with, and you make me miserable. So you're probably making them miserable. So I'm going to do everything I can to shelter them from you. That kind of dynamic is oftentimes at play. I try to get the spouse to say, where is the legitimacy in this person's view? It may appear to us to be ridiculous, and it certainly isn't workable. But if you can look at it and say, he's hurting, he's miserable.
So the bottom line, to fix this, we really need some marriage therapy, some counseling. You need a significant trained other to help dig this out.
Ideally, Mikey, but in most cases, that's not going to happen.
Right. So
In most cases, that's not going to happen.
What do we do with the most cases
Okay.
that don't have the funds even to go to?
I will attempt to work with the spouse, for example, that might come with me. And at that point, we'll step back and we'll say, all right, we know what he's doing. We know it's ugly. We know that it could ultimately hurt the kids. We know that. I'm not even arguing with you about that.
right.
But let's,
You and the mom.
Me and the
This
mom.
is not the husband and wife.
no,
This
he's
is just,
not even here.
Right,
He didn't even come
okay.
in. What can we do to keep your anger from getting so ugly that it justifies what he's saying? I've got to protect the kids from you. Look at you. Look at what you're like. You're a nag. You're argumentative. You're loud. You're mean-spirited. I've got to protect the kids from you. I try to bring her back to where she can assert actual authority. Then I try to pick out what things can you stand your ground on that he can't undercut you on. For example, the kids still come to you and say, Mom, would you blank blank? Well, yes, sweetheart, I really want to do that. But first you're going to have to blank
Write
blank.
that
Yeah,
essay.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, because they're not going to shut Mom out totally. She still does most of it. Okay? And her anger, well, she says, well, what if any of this that I'm doing makes no difference?
the
What
kid.
if by the time he's 17 years old, he says, I can't wait to go be with Dad, or I can't wait to spend my time with Dad because Mom has just been a thorn in my side for the last 14 years. I'll say, even if they say that, you were the only one attempting to establish some kinds of moral and
Right.
self-control. You're the only one.
And that
That's-
commitment, yeah,
That's exactly right.
exactly.
They at least got some of it.
Yep.
It's like, I can't give you all the medicine you need, but I'm giving you enough to keep you from dying, and maybe when you're 24, 25, 26, you'll look at life realistically
Right.
and say, my mother was right.
Was there, and she was there. Yeah. Okay, let's go a little bit further here. Can we stay on this for a little bit longer? Because I find this really helpful. Okay, so now we have a situation where she needs to then identify perhaps what she's doing. You're in a counseling situation, or we're in a mentoring situation with friends. I can't change my girlfriend's husband, but I can help her see what she can change
Yeah.
to not bring out more of his troubled
That's
pathological
exactly
past.
right. And people resist that because when they
Well,
come in.
because now it's about me. who has to
Yeah, that's
do.
right. You got to get past their mindset that says, whoa, 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 I'm not the problem here. You know, why are you focusing on me, telling me I got to be sweeter here, I got to be nicer here, I got to be more rational here, I got to be more, whoa, 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 whoa. I tell my clients there is one foolproof way of changing your spouse. It's the best I've ever seen. Change yourself.
First.
Nobody wants to hear that.
Right.
And we are impatient people. Well, I've been changing myself. I've been changing myself for 2 months. He's no different.
Well, people assume sometimes too that that means they have to swing over to the way he's doing it, or abandon their
doormat.
principles or whatever, and that's not what you're saying.
Not at all. Not at all. You're not being a doormat. What you're doing is you're essentially saying, okay, whatever it is that's my role in this, my 12%, and I'll even acknowledge that for my clients. Say, You take 100 people, and they assess how much of it's Mikey, how much of it is her husband. 100 people would come to an average of it's 12% Mikey and it's 88% her husband. All right. The question for us is, with Mikey changing some of that 12%, will her husband change? I tell my clients, unless you live with Satan himself, most people will start to shift.
To respond
Yes.
to what you've put in play.
You know one of the uglier realities of this whole thing? And you ladies know this because you're insightful. It's not that we lie to a therapist or to a confidant about what's going on at home. We see it our way.
Right. And we don't want, yeah, exactly. We see it through our lens, you know, that is protecting our own little world of confidence.
One of the most
It's very unsettling.
shell-shocking things for a young therapist. Mikey comes in and she says, I've got to talk to you. My marriage is just so difficult. Please, let's talk. I spend 3 sessions talking with Mikey. I get an image of this jerk that she's married to. I'll tell you that right now. This guy ought to be slapped. And then he comes in, and I get to talk with him. And then I start to think,
Which one's the jerk?
I
do I
don't
put
know.
this
I don't know
together?
which world. They're on different planets here.
Yeah.
And that's routine. And it's not necessarily out of maliciousness, it's just that they see it. And so I tell the client that is willing to change, if you do that, you may change her perception, his perception of you. You're not quite the nagging witch that needs protecting, or the kids need protecting from. Yeah, you know, she's a little softer. And I will tell the mothers, to the degree that your authority is quiet and confident, it's harder for people to tag you
As the nagging witch.
that's right, the difficult one who the children can't get along with because I couldn't get along with her either.
Right. Well, and again, we've got a lot of trains running on, you know, here in parenting. And I think if there's, you know, one of the things that we had talked about in an earlier session, Ray, before you were here on the show, is we do want to plug into the church and know that the church has those answers there for us. But the pursuit of those answers is very arduous because we've got to look in personalities, we've got to look at our own past, our own environment. Then we bring that all to the table in our own
And
marriage.
pay me big bucks to do therapy with you.
Well, I thought you were paying me. I
You
guess
guys
we're
are getting this
confused
free.
here.
This is free. This is just I'm just a
No,
cheap.
excuse me, you're paying us. I guess that wasn't clear, but we can discuss that when we're off the air.
Isn't it good to point out that it really is important oftentimes to get an objective third-party perspective, whether it's a trusted
And
friend
paying somebody
or a
is
therapist
worth the
or-
money. When you've been lockjawed, you really do need to get in some SOS professional who can really help. And I
Make
think
sure, and this is particularly relevant to our audience, make sure that professional is coming from the same moral worldview as you are.
Right.
That's one of the great hurdles in getting a good therapist. I advise my clients to interview the therapist. Call them, interview them, ask them questions.
Well, even finding maybe a woman in church that you've known casually, and again, even if it's not, you know, necessarily, and maybe I shouldn't have used the word professional as paid, but someone who is of moral authority and has the experiential as well as the foundational knowledge to help you. It doesn't necessarily always have to be through a paid. Because I do think that is the inherent risk, as you just mentioned. I come to you and I've got a lot of money, and you're getting a whole different view.
Dr. Ray, we thank you for being here. This has been a tremendous discussion, not just on authority and how it relates to shaping moral virtues in our children, but really on the importance of seeing reality as it is. We thank you for joining us, and we hope you will be with us again for another session of Parenting Today, Real Life, Real People, Real Faith.